So, Judge, imagine a 10-year-old child just standing under the bright lights on a movie set being produced by this adult director and professional company. So, in this debate, we believe the central question here is, should society allow children to work in an industry that prioritizes profit over their well-being? At that moment, like childhood stops being about freedom and growth when they're under the bright lights, and instead it becomes performance and pressure. So even if some children succeed here, the structure of the industry creates unavoidable harm. What do these harm include? It includes children that are placed in adult-controlled environments where they have very little power. Secondly, their time, emotions, and image are controlled for profit. And thirdly, they face pressure, public judgment, and long-term consequences that can be emotionally damaging. This means that the harm is not accidental and instead it is built into the system itself. The opposition can say that it's about freedom, choice, or a free market of opportunity, but our response here is clear where when harm is systematic and disproportionate, especially to the children, the society has a duty to regulate or ban that activity. So on proposition, here is what we propose. We want an all-out ban on the child actors in public media or movie production. And secondly, to replace these actors, young adults and develop technology animations or CGI can be used to create realistic scenarios. And thirdly, we would promote school drama and theater
So I
productions for children who want to pursue their passion in acting rather than in actual movie productions. So moving on to my arguments. My first argument is that child acting harms mental and emotional development for children. What I mean by this is that growing up in the spotlight exposes children to pressure and it distorts their identity at a young age. When children are constantly being judged by adults on their performance, they begin to develop their identity as and self-worth to success or fame. At the same time, public attention tends to just develop their identity normally instead of learning through trial becomes public and just constant like criticism or like hate over the internet and public. So a child actor who receives negative comments online may begin to feel insecure or depressed, even though this is a normal part of growing up. And this should
UI.
happen in a safe environment. Judge, no. Judge, you should care about this because this is important because childhood is a very critical stage of development for all of these children, and damaging it can lead to very long-term mental health issues that affect the rest of the children's lives. Moving on to my second argument. Child actors can be replaced by safer alternatives and banning them encourages innovation and industry growth. The entertainment industry has effective alternatives like technology and adult actors that can fulfill the same roles without exposing children to the same harm. In today's world, many filmmakers are not limited to just using real children as the actors. Adults can act as younger characters in a movie using makeup, camera angles, and techniques. At the same time, AI animations and CGI can create realistic child characters also. When we remove child actors from the system, the industry is just pushed more to be using safer methods that drives innovation, and it could also lead to more investment in technology like animation and visual effects. So this matters because it shows that banning child actors does not harm the industry. Instead, it protects children while encouraging safer creativity in the industry and newer job opportunities for adults to act as younger characters, making the system better for everyone while promoting growth. So because of these reasons, so proud to propose.
Hello, my name is Amanda Chu, and I am the first speaker of opposition. Today, in my speech, I will do a submodel, and then I will begin with my 3 pillars of support. Let me begin with my model. So, as the opposition, we mean that the government will not ban child actors. By this, we mean the government will introduce a clear, enforceable rule that child actors under 18 can continue working in things like movies and TV and commercial, but with much stronger protection in place. So what will we do to make this work fairly? We will apply the strict rules only to professional paid work in big production major brands, and we will introduce a small protection tax on bigger production companies that use child actors, with the money going to better on-set education and mental health support for young performers. We will also allow short transition periods for current contracts and projects finish, and review the rules every 2 years to make sure they actually help the children. And that is how the opposition will enforce our position today. Now let me begin with my points. First, violation of freedom and opportunity. Why? Because banning child actors removes the child and their families' rights to pursue a legitimate career and passion in the performing arts. Many successful adults begin acting as
Amanda, we cannot hear you.
children explain confidence and skills, or as prodigies do. Economics and cultural benefits outweigh the risks. Child actors bring fantasy and emotional depth to roles that adults cannot replicate, unlike what the Prime Minister said. Why? Because all this stuff like CGI and makeup is also possible. We need the genuine childhood innocence in family films or coming of age stories. This is extremely hard to replicate, as in some movies with child protagonists such as Wonder. The industry also provides significant economic opportunities for families, especially in lower income households, with existing legal protections, strict hour limits, mandatory onset schooling and trust funds, Kugon laws in some places, and parent or guardian oversight. The risk can reduce the quality and diversity of storytelling in film and TV. Third, better regulation, not prohibition. Why? Because problems with child acting stem from poor enforcement or loopholes in current laws, not the practice itself. Instead of banning it, governments should strengthen regulations, shorten maximum hours, and have better mental health support. Independent child advocates on set, and stricter limits on advertising or sexualization, and improved education standards. Why? And not only that, but this practice is already in motion. Many countries already have safeguards, and well-managed child acting can be a positive and empowering experience that builds resilience and opens doors. A blanket man throws out the baby with the bathwater and ignores successful examples of child actors who do thrive. In conclusion, as the opposition, we prioritize the child's passion, their health, and we also remove all of those legal loopholes that the proposition talks of. And this is why I believe this motion must and will fall. Thank you very much for listening to my speech, and please vote opposition. Thank you.
In this speech, I'll do two things. First, I'll rebut what the first speaker of the opposition said, and second, I'll present a new argument in support of the proposition. So let me start with my rebuttals. So firstly, the first speaker from the opposition said that their model would be to allow child actors under 18 with guardian supervision that's stronger than what's currently happening. But the reality is that even with stronger restrictions, there's no way to protect child actors from pressure as well as the general impacts such as having fame or having your face projected all over screens in the world. And we already have lots of regulation, but as we see time and time again, this is not enough. We still see stories of child actors being manipulated and exploited, and I'll further rebut this in my child exploitation argument. And they also said that having childs in acting is necessary for acting in realism. To that, here's my response. So firstly, for many roles, especially older children and young adults and young teens, adults can already play them convincingly. We see this all the time in films, such as in Mean Girls or Legally Blonde. Actors who are clearly older are still playing these teenage roles, and audiences are still accept it because it's still a good story at the end of the day. So opposition cannot say that child actors are always necessary for realism when the entertainment industry has already shown that age can be stretched. And second, even in cases involving where we're acting very young children, we are comfortable sacrificing some realism when the trade-off is child safety. Movies are already full of things that are not realistic, so realism is not the highest value in entertainment. Opposition is basically saying that they're okay with children being manipulated in return for slightly more natural scenes, and that is obviously not moral. So, they are misunderstanding the burden in this debate. Proposition does not need to show that the stories become identical without child actors. We only need to show that some loss in realism is acceptable when compared to systemic harm to children. So done with my rebuttals, let me start with my argument. So my argument is that child actors are highly vulnerable to exploitation even when the adults around them have good intentions. And the premise of this is that children cannot give informed consent and they have to rely on parents. But both good and bad parental decisions can still lead to harmful outcomes. So in this situation, there are two types of parents.
UI.
Those with bad intentions. Yes.
But doesn't parents already make a lot of decisions for children already in the status quo, such as which schools they go to or those stuff?
Yeah, but schools is like obviously there's a lot less danger in schools compared to child acting. And as I'll explain in my argument, there's a lot of like room and there's a lot of incentive for exploitation. So the parents have bad intentions, the harm is obvious. Like they may push the child into acting for money or fame, ignoring the child's well-being. Like as the first speaker of opposition said, the industry provides significant economic opportunities for families. What does that mean? It means that parents will be wanting to squeeze every dollar they can out of their child while they are still cute and marketable. Even if the parents have good intentions, the outcome can still be harmful. Good parents may believe acting is beneficial, but they cannot control the environment of the industry. Once the child enters the system, they're exposed to long working hours, emotional pressure, and public judgment. This means that regardless of intention, the structure of the industry itself produces negative outcomes no matter what. The key issue is not just content itself, but what that lack of informed consent leads to, which is obviously harmful results. For instance, like a parent may genuinely believe that their child enjoys acting and wants to support their dreams. However, the child may end up facing online hate if they become famous or emotional stress for constantly performing. Like, for example, the actor of like Roderick Heffley got lots of hate and ended his acting career because he wasn't a good actor. And even successful child actors often receive harsh criticism on social media platforms because there are always people judging them. So even in the best case scenario with supportive parents, the child still suffers negative consequences no matter what. This matters because it shows that the system is harmful at its core. Even when everything seems to go right, children are still inevitably exposed to stress, exploitation, and public pressure. This means that we cannot rely on good intentions to protect children, and that opposition's model is simply not realistic and not feasible, and it won't complete what they're truly trying to do, which is to protect child actors. Proud to propose.
What? We call a 7-year-old pianist a prodigy, and we call an 8-year-old gymnast an Olympian in the making. So why, when a child has a genius for storytelling, do we treat their career like a crime that needs to be banned? Today, I will show you that acting isn't just a work, but it is a powerful platform for a child's future. Specifically, I will argue that child acting provides a unique path for children, and by banning this profession, we aren't protecting children, but we are stifling their talent and closing the doors to financial freedom. And the debate over child acting isn't just about entertainment, and it's about whether we protect children through visibility or endanger them through prohibition. And today I will argue that child acting shouldn't be banned because professional regulation is the only true way to keep them safe. First, let me rebut to the second speaker of proposition. So previously, they claimed that the harm is obvious because child acting ignores a child's well-being. However, this argument is purely emotional and ignores the reality of modern safety laws. In fact, a ban is a real threat to well-being because it strips away the legal protection of unions and teachers and leaving children vulnerable in the unregulated world of social media where no one is watching. The biggest reason not to ban child actors is that banning something doesn't make it stop. It just makes it go underground. The harm is that if we ban kids from professional movies, the demand for kid stars won't go away. Instead, parents will push their kids onto YouTube, TikTok, and family blogs, and this is like a Wild West where there are no bosses, no rules, and no one checking. And if the child is tired or sad, and then they will have no vulnerability. And the solution is that in a professional movie set, we have a safety net, and there are laws, for example, like the Coogan Act, that forces parents to save the kids money in a bank account that they cannot touch. There are also mandatory teachers on set so the kids won't fall behind in school. The impact is that keeping the job legal means that we can police it. It's much safer for a kid to work in front of 100 professional crew members and a union rep than in a private living room where no one is watching them. Secondly, we must address the psychological need for creative expression. Not every child finds fulfillment in the playground or on the soccer field. For many, the ability to perform, to tell stories, and to inhabit different characters is an essential part of who they are. By banning child acting, we're effectively stifling the voices of some of our most creative young minds. We're telling them that their passion is illegal until they reach a significant age. Professional sets also provide a high-level environment where children learn discipline, teamwork, and emotional intelligence. They work with mentors, directors, and peers who share their passion, creating a community of like-minded individuals. Artistic expression is a fundamental human right. If a child has a genius talent for a violin, we call them a prodigy and encourage it. But But why then do we seek to ban children whose genius lies in the dramatic arts? Acting is their creative outlet, and it's how they process the world. Removing this outlet doesn't protect them, but it suppresses their identity. The logic is that why do we trust a professional set over a band? Because a movie set is the most scrutinized workplace on earth. Therefore, in conclusion, the solution to the risk of the industry isn't a total ban. It's a regulation. And we aren't banning children from sports because of the risk of injury. We mandate helmets and coaches. Similarly, we should continue to mandate on-set tutors, psychological support, and financial protections. We must protect the right of a child to be financially independent and the right to express their creative soul. To ban child acting is to rob the world of art and to rob the children of their agency. For these reasons, I am proud to oppose the motion. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to talk about this overall debate. So this overall debate is about whether child actors should be banned, but what we are right now, what we are focusing on is whether we should restrict the time of these, why we should restrict the time of these kids' working hours, and instead of while opposition is talking about regulations, and we are mainly focusing on protection from exploitation and stress. Yes, while these regulations still leaves child exposed to some pressures and contracts and profit-driven adults, our main model is stronger because it completely protects childhood while allowing the filming industry to move through safer alternatives. So I would like to talk about the first clash. So opponents' main claim is that the child acting can be made safe with supervision and stronger rules. But our team demonstrated that why this fails, because a child cannot actually truly consent, as they mainly depend on their adults. Even with laws, the pressure of emotion still stays. And yes, parents, managers, and these producers and directors often put out a lot of profit, and then sorry. And then regulations cannot remove harm, but it only creates more stress, and it only haunts the kid more as the spotlight, as more people focus on them as they become more successful. So first, I would like to poke some holes in opposition's debate, is that they admitted that child acting is risky, but yet they still defended it, and because they mainly relied on passion and resilience, but they ignored the long-term effects of harms and loss of, for example, loss of privacy, stress, and mainly exploitation to do things. They contradicted themselves by saying CGI and makeup is possible, but still, children are insisted to act. Their main case is inconsistent and mainly failed to prove that children can be safe in this filming industry. So now I would like to talk about what we were able to do and that's proposition. Our first speaker demonstrated how child acting harms their mental health and causes deep emotional growth. For example, trying to become famous, and this exposes the child to criticism and because as the child is still young, they don't understand social media as much as what people do, as people don't understand how toxic the social environment can actually be. As there are definitely going to be many people that criticize this kid for what they do and how they act. So therefore, these people should, yes.
But the kid won't directly receive or see or hear the criticism.
It is protected time. It is protected time, no POIs.
Okay, I will not answer that question since it is in the protective time. So, and then I would like to talk about our second speaker as he explained how children are easily exploited by these adults that mainly chases money and profits. Our proposition team provides a clear principle that children's childhood should mainly be about their growth and their safety, and not money, not contracts, and not stress and deadlines. So in conclusion, why we win is that our house is why we should restrict the amount of time that a child can act, is that we were able to provide clear arguments, strong reasoning, and good alternative, and we win this case. I'm proud to propose.
person should have a right to express and go on stage and shine. And the proposition side is taking this right away. So today in my speech, I'll give a few rebuttals and some new clashes into this debate. Moving on to my first rebuttal. So the other side said that parents will use child as a tool to earn money and infinitely use them and put them in the shows, but that's not true because many parents actually knows that this will harm the child, and if the child like dies, they will have to take a lot of responsibility. It's also not important because even if they actually want to put the child infinitely, based on the info slide, there will be limiting hours. So even if the parent want to put the child in the acting for a lot and a lot and a lot, it won't work because the limiting hours will limit the child to like a certain amount of time. So the scenario of their side that the child will be acting 24/7 won't come true. And if parents are actually like that in the current world now, this should already be happening, and children will be studying 24 hours a day, but that is not what's happening, proving that parents' heart doesn't work like that. Moving on to the first clash, which is about like the Marvel. So they said that we are being immoral and we are using child as like a tool, but that is not true because the parent and the kid give consent, and as I was talking about, the parent they won't completely make irrational decisions. They will also consider about the child. And we are protecting the principle of freedom of speech and expressing themselves. Because based on the United Nations rule, everyone, including children, should have right to express their true feelings, their culture, their beliefs, what they think is right. However, the other side is stopping that and regulating that by banning this, and the children don't get their chance to shine and say what they think is correct, which is a very big problem. And our impact is that the freedom of speech and those rights are demolished, and now we don't have that right, which is a very crucial right of humanity. Moving on to second class.
POI.
Yes.
How is freedom of speech related to the restriction of how the amount of time a kid can act?
Okay. Basically, that's freedom of expressing themselves, which is basically like freedom of speaking because you express yourself through acting and also speaking. So as I was talking about in class 2, it's about what the child needs. And yeah, so the proposition cited that we are hurting the child a lot, but this is not true because based on the info slide, there will be tutors on campus and there will be like a limited acting time. And even if people are mistreating the child, like the director, the tutor is unbiased and they don't get money, so the tutor on site could still regulate problems. And they said that pressure and attention will be created for the child, but that's actually good and beneficial for the child because it will make the child more skilled and it will train the child to manage themselves in high pressure scenarios. Also, the child wouldn't see the comment and the criticism wouldn't go to them, it will go to the parent. There's also a lot of positive comments in the same time as the negative comments. They said that CG in an adult, like CGI, it won't work, and no matter how hard it is, it can't do the actual child, and it's not as realistic, which will lead to not a good scene, leading to a bad movie, leading to no money, and leading to the fail of the whole industry and the career. And when the industry fails, all the actors, directors, they get no money and they might die because they can't afford the survival one. So the whole industry of entertainment collapses. And our impact of the industry collapsing is much more important than the child getting hurt because that's an individual impact, and our impact is a group impact, and it's irreversible because we can't build it again. Also, the argument about child getting exploited to adult concepts is not correct because there are older child in the film crew, and also some movies, they are actually good and there are good scenes that child could participate in, and we could regulate it but not ban them from any single scene on earth. And many child actually have the talent to act, and we should shine them and not waste them. So in conclusion, we are actually making many good things out of this debate, and we should win this debate. Thank you.
In their world, where child acting is banned, the market of child talent doesn't disappear. It just moves into the living room of family vloggers and TikTokers where there are no unions, no teachers, and no laws to protect them. They aren't saving children, they are just removing the only safety net that actually works. But in our world, we don't just hope for safety. We mandate it through the law. By keeping this industry professional, we provide children with a legal safety net of union reps, mandatory teachers, and protected bank accounts that simply do not exist in the unregulated shadow industries the proposition would leave them in. My opponents speak of saving children as if child actors are currently trapped in like a lawless void. They describe the high-pressure environment of a film set, but they fail to acknowledge that for every headline about a burnt-out star, there are thousands of successful and well-adjusted adults who credit their early careers for this discipline and success. The harm in this debate isn't the work itself, but it's the total ban my opponent proposes, which would strip children of their rights and push them into unregulated danger. In their world, the legal protections that we've discussed, like the Coogan Act, completely vanish. But in our world, the state forces a portion of a child's pay into a locked-in trust account, and in their world, where acting moves to amateur or influencer platforms, there's no law and there's no law requiring parents to save a single cent for their child's future. They claim to help a kid, but they are actually stripping away their financial independence. Opposition claimed that the harm is obvious because child acting ignores the child's well-being, but this argument relies on outdated stereotypes rather than the current reality. A total ban won't stop parents from wanting their children to be famous. It will only move the work from professional sets with on-set teachers and union reps to the dark side of social media and family vlogging, where exploitation is even harder to track. The solution is that the professional industry is already a solution, and laws like the Coogan Act guarantee that some of the child's earnings are locked into a trust until age 18, protecting them from financial abuse. Next, affirmative argued that child acting ruins a child's education. However, this is factually incorrect under current labor laws. Prohibiting child actors denies talented young people a unique form of vocational play that builds empathy and social emotional skills far beyond what a traditional classroom can offer. Professional sets are legally required to
Time.
onset tools, and therefore I believe that opposition should win, and I'm proud to
This
oppose.
debate is about whether society should allow children to be placed in a profit-driven industry when safer alternatives already exist. As reply speaker for proposition, in this speech, I'll compare the two worlds in this debate to two main clashes. Firstly, the realism of child acting, and second, whether regulation can actually protect child actors. So on the first clash, opposition tried to tell us that child acting is necessary for realism in movies. However, we have already been able to prove that adults have the capacity to act out young teens, just in like these movies such as Mean Girls. And in addition, our positive contribution in our world is that we're able to guarantee the child's safety. Comparatively, opposition's world is able to have slightly more realism in movies, but they have to rely on limited regulations and I'll address this in my next class about why we win this as well. Therefore, it is clear that our positive contribution is debate winning because like a child's safety is obviously should be prioritized over realism in media. So on the second clash, opposition claimed that their model would be to have better regulations that could solve this problem by such as having guardian supervision. But we proved that this response should already fall. So rules could maybe limit like working hours or require schooling on set, but they cannot remove like the deepest harm to child acting, like feeling emotional pressure or like being judged by millions of strangers online. No matter how many rules you have, you cannot completely guarantee a child's safety unless you completely ban it. Time and time again, we hear stories about child actors facing issues, even like no matter how hard you try, like we have been able to prove that it's not possible to completely guarantee a child's safety. Whereas in our world, by banning child actors, we are able to guarantee that child actors cannot face harm. So when we compare the two worlds, the choice becomes like really clear. In the opposition world, children stay in an industry where they're exposed to immense emotional pressure and public judgment just to maintain freedom of speech and realism. In our world, children still get a chance to perform through our model of promoting theater or school plays. They get to build confidence and explore creativity, but they do so in schools and community spaces where their well-being came first. That is the more safer and more responsible world. For those reasons, we have already won this debate. Proud to propose.